some holes in it.
30% of the time it is.
Right. Actually, it's just math. As you look live at Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, keep in mind, if he sees his shadow, 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't see his shadow, 6 more weeks of winter, essentially, because winter runs 6 more weeks.
How cold is it out there?
It's something like
13?
It's 13 degrees. That's right. So it's always a big party. Janice Dean was there last year, and we're going to take you down to see whether or not the groundhog sees his shadow in about 20 minutes.
Janice was inducted into the Groundhog Hall of Fame.
I know it.
Right. It must have been emotional for her. She went in there. That's a career goal. All right, let's...
You're looking live at Gobbler's Knob. Oh, man, they're cutting up a rug, aren't they?
This year they look sober.
I don't know if you could be out there in that cold weather.
All right,
so we'll bring it to you live. What time is 7:20, right?
Yeah,
7:20-ish.
It's not exactly military precision down there.
Okay.
So 7:20, 7:25. Stand by for that. In the meantime, we've got a Fox News alert. And President Trump is expected to give the green light to release that highly classified memo which alleges abuse within the FBI and the Department of Justice. But Democrats are really angry. They don't want it out.
All right, moments ago, the president tweeting this, quote, the top leadership and investigators of the FBI and Justice Department have politicized the sacred investigation process in favor of Democrats and against Republicans, something which would have been unthinkable just a short time ago. Rank and file, great people.
Griff Jenkins is live down in Washington with the latest on what we know about the memo. Griff, any word? Is it going to be released today or Monday?
That's what the White House is saying, and Democrats don't like it. They're not going to like that tweet either. But the president says Americans deserve transparency and answers over allegations of FBI abuse, while Democrats are lashing out at the memo's author. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes echoing warnings by the Justice Department that releasing this memo could harm national security. The ranking member of the committee, Adam Schiff, says it's misleading.
This memo is really a spin because of serious and material omissions, is inaccurate and gives a very misleading impression.
Now, Ainsley, GOP sources say there are explosive revelations in this memo regarding top-ranking FBI and DOJ officials using a FISA law to spy on the Trump campaign in 2016 and ultimately leading to the Mueller investigation. House Speaker Paul Ryan says it's Congress's duty to find out and take action if necessary.
What it is the Congress's legitimate function of oversight to make sure that the FISA process is being used correctly, and that if it wasn't being used correctly, that needs to come to light and people need to be held accountable.
And once the president signs off, it will be up to the Intel Committee to release the memo, and Adam Schiff, along with Nancy Pelosi, calling for Nunes' removal. So a lot is riding on this, guys, including possible vindication for Chairman Nunes.
You know, I just wonder, Griff, if this memo relieved bad things about the Trump campaign or administration, would Democrats still feel as though the sanctity of the FBI and the intelligence gathering was on the docket, or is this pure politics? Or should I not ask you that question? By the look on your face, you don't want me to ask you the question. Am I right, Griff?
No.
You can answer.
Here's the deal. All Americans want to know whether or not institutions of justice or top-ranking FBI has been weaponized. That's the word that's used, and now people are paying attention. So answers are what people want.
Right. But not Democrats. They don't want the answers. Thanks, Griff. Not in this case, because they're worried about their long-term relationship between intelligence and the Intelligence Committee and the FBI. If you take them on with their say.
If they didn't do anything wrong, why do they care? Why allow the American people to make up their own minds?
Absolutely.
Release it. Let us see.
And what about the Department of Justice and the FBI? Why are they objecting? We've heard that there were a couple of words changed because of grammar, because of syntax. Joe DeGeneva, who used to work in the Department of Justice, he was on with Tucker last night, and he said that Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, wants the names of the FBI agents who broke the law taken out. He wants them redacted. But nonetheless, they're getting pushback. Will there be names? We had a U.S. congressman on yesterday, Mark Meadows. He made it very clear that names are going to be in the report that is released either today, tomorrow, or the next day.
Release the memo. And those are all of the Republicans' concerns about what happened. Then release the Democratic memo explaining why this happened, or the FBI can respond to each of those points that the Republicans have questions about.
Yeah, let all three come out. The FBI characterized this memo as misleading, noting they had been given limited opportunity to review before the committee voted to release. However, we know Chris Wray, the director, saw it Sunday, 5 agents saw it Tuesday, and now it's coming out as early as Friday. So we'll see what happens. You know where the president stands. He just weighed in. Release it. Politics at the top, but not in the field offices. Everyone is going out of their way to say that because it's true. A lot of people, right? They're not upset by getting to the answers here. Those are the ones getting their hands dirty.
Yeah, I don't know that the president would release it today because there's something big going on.
What do you mean?
It's Groundhog Day.
Right. He doesn't want to take attention away from the groundhog?
You never know. That's going to happen in about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, the President of the United States was out in West Virginia yesterday addressing the Republicans. And it's interesting what he was talking about. Of course, we all know that employers have until February 15th to start changing their withholding. But I'm already getting email from people from all over the country who are talking about, I just looked at my paycheck and I'm getting $150 more a month. The average American is going to get close to $1,000 of their own money in their pocket thanks to this tax cut.
That's so wonderful. And Nancy Pelosi, you know, she called them crumbs. And the president, he compared her comments, the crumb comment, to what Hillary Clinton said on the campaign trail when she called Donald Trump's supporters deplorables. Listen.
And then we got hit with these corporations giving tremendous bonuses to everybody that Nancy Pelosi called crumbs. That was a bad, that could be like deplorable. Does that make sense? Deplorable and crumbs?
Well, and that's just it, because if you see a rich, this is one of the Democratic strategists in today was quoted as saying, look, this is a worry because you're a rich person from San Francisco telling everybody else that $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 are crumbs. That's not the optics. Just like you have to pass the Obamacare to find out what's in it. Now you have the crumbs comment, and then you have Hillary Clinton's deplorable comment. There are certain comments, you hear them and say she or he is going to have a tough time shaking this. She is going to have a tough time shaking it. She's already been troublesome for the party as a figurehead. This is going to make it worse.
Well, just think about it. Come November, you're going to elect a Democrat who is, you know, in the House, if it's going to be headed up by Nancy Pelosi, who feels like that about the money in my pocket. Donna Mincy, the CEO of Mincy Marble down in Gainesville, Georgia, was with us just about a half an hour ago. And she had seen what AT&T was doing to their employees. And so she decided to give some of her employees up to $1,000 bonus if they'd been there 10 years. And she had these observations about how it more broadly affects business, small business.
The tax reform is benefiting small business even more than large businesses because we don't have the staff of accountants and tax attorneys and everything to help us get our rate down. So we've been really paying a 35% rate, and now we're going to a 21%. So we're very significantly affected. And I wanted to share that with the people who helped to get us where we are. People were jumping up and down. They're so happy. You know, there's all kinds of things that $1,000 will do. And, you know, when you're in the South, that's a lot of money.
And it's a lot of money, too. And when you consider the GOP is raising more money than the Democrats, and 44% are coming from so-called small donors that might be, I don't know, getting crumbs this year, then perhaps perhaps the Republicans are feeling confident that they're resonating with the working person.
So many of you were weighing in on this, and we want to read some of your comments. Heidi emailed us, and she said, my pay has gone up $50 bi-weekly. That money will go a long way for my family. It will never be considered crumbs.
That would be about $100 a month. That'd be $1,200. Hey, Nancy, crumbs? I just got an $82 increase in my retirement. Not crumbs to me.
Yeah.
And Joseph says this, hey, Nancy, comma, those crumbs turned into a slice of bread for my wife, and I thank you, President Trump and Republicans. So we get just a slice of bread?
Put enough crumbs together, you got some dough.
Oh.
I think that's essentially what she's trying to say.
So we'll see what it means, because so far...
for Donna, though, it was very clear. Her tax rate is going from 35% to 21%. That's a jackpot.
Yeah. All right, we're going to hand it over to Jillian, who a lot of people are spending that extra money buying food for their Super Bowl parties on Sunday.
Yes, they
You're excited about that. Go Eagles, right?
Yes, go Eagles. Good morning to you guys. Let's get you caught up on some of your news of the day. Starting here, a Wisconsin teenager will spend 40 years in a mental hospital for trying to kill her classmate. Morgan Geyser pleading guilty to stabbing a girl in the woods 19 times to please the fictional horror character known as Slender Man. Geyser and a friend, Anissa Wire, behind the attack in 2014 when they were just 12 years old. The victim somehow waved down help and survived. Geyser's lawyers say she suffered from paranoia and delusions. The yoga instructor accused of driving off a cliff in Hawaii, killing her twin sister, is now free. A federal judge, finding Alexandria Duval not guilty of second-degree murder. Witnesses in Honolulu say they saw Duval and her sister, Anastasia, arguing inside a Ford Explorer right before the SUV plunged 200 feet over a cliff. Anastasia died at the scene. President Trump meeting with North Korean defectors in the Oval Office today in an effort to pressure dictator Kim Jong-un on human rights. 8 defectors will be there, including Gi Song-ho, who was recognized during the State of the Union address for showing unbelievable courage to escape the regime. Today's visit will focus on human rights abuses in the rogue nation as nuclear tensions continue on the Korean peninsula. Let's look at your headlines. I think that's one man that people will never forget, and that image of
with the
him holding up.
crutches.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you.
Weasels and liars. He was one of the first to go and now fired. FBI Director James Comey is lashing out ahead of the FISA memo release. He tweeted that yesterday.
Plus, it's Groundhog Day. Will Puxacani Phil see his shadow, or will spring come early this year? We're going to find out as we go to Gobbler's Knob ahead.
It is 7:16 out in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. Fox News alert. You're looking live from Gobbler's Knob out there right now.
That is in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. At any moment, America's most famous groundhog is going to determine whether or not we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter.
All right, if he doesn't see a shadow, we'll have an early spring. But now let's bring in back to the real life situation. We'll go to that live when he comes out.
Shortly.
Andy McCarthy's sitting on deck, and Democratic Congressman Andy Schiff slammed that memo that could be released any time today, which alleges FISA abuse. And that is the #1 topic right now on the tip of everybody's tongue.
Yeah, Adam Schiff also calling for House Intelligence Committee Chairman Republican Devin Nunes to step aside. Actually, I'm being told
it's showtime.
Time.
Let's go out. Will Phil see his shadow? Let's go live. This guy's going to be able to decipher all that.
Okay, guys, are we ready? Let's remove our lock, please. Come on, Phil. Then shut our doors. Ladies and gentlemen, Punxsutawney Phil. Okay there, big guy. Come on, we got to do our thing. Gather around here, guys. It's getting pretty serious here. What do you think, buddy? Huh?
Stay here.
We got a winter or we got a spring?
Stay here.
Huh? Shivering. Yeah, shivering. Okay, we got it. That one right there. There, I got it. I got it. I'm at you. Come on down. Right up close. I'll just hold it. Hear ye. Oh, that's hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Now this second day of February, 2018, the 100 Dilly, dilly.
Well, there you've got it. Fox News alert. Phil saw his shadow, which is extraordinary because it is cloudy out in Punxsutawney. So obviously he saw his shadow from the TV lights. Nonetheless, 6 more weeks of winter.
That is actually wonderful news, isn't it, Brian and Steve?
Right,
We
yeah.
haven't really gotten a lot of snow up
I don't
here.
want the kids yet playing outdoors for at least 6 extra weeks. I want to be sprinting from building to building instead of walking slowly in the sun. It'll be fantastic. By the way, good news. The groundhog, with all that fur, still shivering, which is unbelievable. You would think between that and the blubber.
Look, the groundhog lives at the library in town, and so it's not from the wild.
Oh,
so maybe
cute.
it's a little chilly.
All right.
Anyway,
So I'm
It's
ready.
12 degrees, anyone's shivering. I
Right.
don't care how much fur you have on.
So I'm ready to leave. Are you guys ready to leave the groundhog?
I think we've got our headline, Brian. We can move on to the balance of the show and continue
Fantastic.
the introduction that was interrupted for Phil.
Meanwhile, back to the country we were talking about. Former assistant U.S. attorney and contributing editor of the National Review, Andy McCarthy. Andy, please try to put the 6 more weeks of summer of winter behind you and forge ahead with Memogate. First off, from the legal perspective, and from everything you've been through, and we've been reading your writings, you've been ahead of the curve the whole time. Does the FBI have a right to be concerned about a misperception about the conclusions in a memo?
Well, they have a right to be concerned about it, but they also have an opportunity to fill in with context anything that they say is misleading. I think one of the misconceptions about the process that we've had, which has been fed by a lot of people in Washington, is that they did not have a chance to weigh in on the memo. The memo is made of materials that they had in their possession, and the way the process worked, there was always going to be this 5-day period when President Trump got to make the decision about whether to object or not to the memo becoming public. So they were always going to have a chance to weigh in. And there's no reason why, since they're the owners of the classified information, if you will, in this sense, there's no reason why they can't add whatever context they say is necessary to understand what gets disclosed.
And interesting you say that, because they actually did that. The president, the one that he plans to release that will be declassified, it contains technical edits that were made at the FBI's request, our sources are telling us. They're also saying that they edited the version, they took this edited version, they showed it to 5 different FBI individuals at the White House, and they walked away and said they were satisfied with the edits that were made.
Yeah, that's right, Ainsley. I think actually Director Wray got to see it even before the committee voted.
Correct.
And my understanding of what they have said about it is that they can't contest, now that they've made these minor edits, whatever they are, they can't contest the accuracy of whatever is in the 4 corners of the document. Now, they'll have an argument to make, I suppose, that there are other things that ought to be considered. But again, I would just underscore that means that if we need more disclosure, we should get more disclosure.
Absolutely. But what you've been watching on television, Andy, over the last couple of days is it's not about whether or not the FBI and the Department of Justice used a single-sourced Oppo research document to essentially spy on Americans that shouldn't have been. But instead, it's all about Devin Nunes and how Devin Nunes essentially is going to destroy America if this document gets out.
Yeah, well, that's an old playbook. It's it's really the old, we've known it as the Alinsky playbook for a number of years, where you basically, when they say pick the target, freeze it, destroy it, and that's what they're clearly trying to do. It's a kind of tactic you see from defense lawyers in trials a lot. You can't fight the case, you can't fight the evidence. So what you try to do is pick a person and ruin him, and try to make that person the embodiment of the evidence in the case. And it rarely works, but it doesn't mean they don't try.
Right. Reports are that Rosenstein looks terrible, the deputy attorney general in this, and the Washington Post contends that the president will use this as an excuse to get rid of him. He's the one looking over the shoulder of Robert Mueller and maybe not doing the best job. What are you looking for, Andy McCarthy, to see in this? What are the questions that you hope to get answered?
Well, I think the main question we need to have answered is, was the dossier used in a FISA application? If it was the part of it that they used corroborated in any way? And if it wasn't, how important was it to the issuance of the warrant? So just to make an example, if you have 10 critical facts that are presented to the court to make out the probable cause you need for the warrant, and 7 of them are rock solid and 3 of them aren't, and one of them, let's say one of them is the dossier, and it's very sketchy, that may not be a big problem, although you would come away saying they really shouldn't have used that. On the other hand, if the balance tips that they needed this unverified information in order to get the judge to issue the warrant, then I think that's a major problem.
One of the things that I've been reading online over the last 48 hours is that some Democrats and observers have said, well, there better be some real fire in there because otherwise the Republicans have overplayed their hand, scaring people. It's, you know, there's going to be big things revealed.
Well, you know, look, I think that's the expectation game, and I've been writing about it. You've had, I think, overheated statements on both sides. One side, as you point out, is trying to destroy Chairman Nunes. I think poor Chairman Nunes, his problem is he doesn't understand the way the game works in Washington. What he should have done is just evidently leak this to the media, and then he could have cherry-picked the version of events he wanted out there. That's the way it's done in Washington. Instead, he played by the rules, so he's getting fried.
Interesting.
And on the other hand, you have people who are already saying this is worse than Watergate, which I think is a nutty thing to say until we see what it is.
Yeah, that's true.
So let the thing be out there and let it speak for itself.
Sure.
Andy, I want to ask you about timing because we've known in the media that sometimes if it's bad news, they'll release it like on a holiday weekend so that it gets pushed under the rug. In this case, if you were the president, would you release it today or would you release it Monday? Because think about this weekend, you've got the Sunday shows, and it would give them a narrative, something to talk about, but also Super Bowl parties, people would be talking about. When would you release it?
Ainsley, now I'm going to go lawyer on you.
Okay.
This is one of those things where they can't actually massage the news cycle as much as they'd like because this is a process. There's a kind of a 5-day clock started to tick once they release this or once the House or the House committee voted on it. So I don't think, you know, I suppose they could back channel have negotiations on when it comes out. But, you know, I think it may get harder for them to release it if they delay because of all the attacks, you know, sustained attacks on Nunes. So I think they, from their perspective, they probably want the story not to be the committee. They want it to be the document.
Right.
And I think today is probably the day.
And, Andy, a lot of people are saying if Chris Wray resigns, this would not have been worth it. After all, he's been on the job 6 months and picked by the president. There is some nervousness at the White House that he might do that. I sense that he's doing it to show he's standing up for the department. But this is not his fight. This all happened before he got there. Why leave now? What is your sense?
I think he's defending his agency. I really wish once the president decides what he should do, the agency, which are his subordinates, ought to just salute. They've had their chance to have their say. But what I hope Director Wray will do is if remedies have to be made here. If things went wrong and they have to be fixed, I think he should be part of the solution, not caterwauling about it.
All right. Andrew McCarthy joining us from his home library, I believe in New Jersey. Andy, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, 29 minutes after the top of the hour, President Trump expected to release that FISA abuse memo, but Democrats desperately trying to stop it. Will it come out today? We're going to ask Kellyanne Conway.
Plus, Pete Hegseth is live in Minnesota taking a little pigskin with fans ahead of the Super Bowl, breakfast with friends, Pancake Pete, and those guys coming up. Hey, is that? We know that guy.
We'll find out, I'm told. My mother, she told me so.
I see my royal shadow. 6 more weeks of winter to go.
Those are the words of the groundhog read out by a human being a short time ago. A Fox News alert, 6 more weeks of winter counting today.
Just moments ago, Punxsutawney Phil came out of his burrow at Gobbler's Knob in Pennsylvania with his famous prediction.
Senior meteorologist Janice Dean, who was immortalized into their Hall of Fame last year, joins us live.
The Punxsutawney Hall of Fame this time last year. And by the way, this hat has a groundhog on it. So the good news is the groundhog is only correct about 39% of the time. So there is the chance of an early spring, but 107 forecast now make it 108. calling for more winter. And it is cold out in Punxsutawney. I'm not surprised. 9 degrees with the wind chill. It feels like -8. So breezy and cold weather there. And the cold temperatures continue across the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and the Northeast. My concern is we've got this system along the East Coast. Behind it, very cold air. So a flash freeze is possible on the roadways, on the bridges. So be really careful if you're traveling today. We watch this system exit the East Coast, and then another system moves in across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast. This one could be more significant Sunday into Monday, especially for the interior Northeast, the Great Lakes. The jury is still out on whether or not we're going to see snow along the coast. Stay tuned.
All right, JD, thank you very much.
You got it.
Thanks,
Meanwhile, let's go to the North Lawn of the White House. Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the President of the United States, here for reaction to 6 more weeks of winter. And, hey, where are you?
Well,
that's not the White House.
That would be great, except I'm at the Greenbrier. I'm speaking to the retreat today, and somehow I think a Patriots fan decided I should have a shot outside in a blizzard. But thanks. Yeah, 6 more weeks of winter. You see it right here in West Virginia. 6 more weeks of winter. Janice, believe me, your job is safe.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
kidding.
Snow.
All right. Right. So let's talk about the one of the top stories today. I know the president was with you yesterday and is speaking twice in one day, but everyone's talking about this memo that he's going to green light today, reportedly, and then Devin Nunes will release this FISA memo. Kellyanne, how concerned is the president that the FBI director will quit because of this?
The president has not expressed that concern at all. And I would just remind everyone of a couple things, because I see people lying about this. The president has stated many times that he respects the rank and file of the FBI, the 25,000 men or women who do a great job there. This particular investigation has taken a lot of twists and turns, and it's led us to a few bad actors who had direct responsibility for an investigation about his political opponent and who are obviously biased against him. When it comes to this memo, the president takes very seriously the process and his constitutional duty. Also, I see those running around today screaming about national security concerns, and let's hope they're being honest, that they're not just worrying about looking bad with whatever the contents of this memo may reveal, because this president has taken his time this week to make sure that legal counsel, National Security Council, and anyone else involved in the review process has had their time to diligently and thoroughly review the document before sending it back to Congress, because obviously Congress would be the one releasing this. But I just want to say people have been selectively leaking with impunity for a very long time.
Sure.
And those who want transparency and accountability and a Russia investigation ought to stand firm in that belief today, if and when this memo is actually released.
Yeah. Kellyanne, what do you make of people who say, well, Chris Wray and Rod Rosenstein, they've gone to the White House, they've appealed to John Kelly and others not to release it because they're just trying... Maybe she's having trouble hearing me, because they want to protect the bureaucracy. Kellyanne, can you still hear us? I think not. Look, that's what happens. 6 more weeks of winter. Something goes haywire with your audio.
Next time, live shot inside.
Right. Yeah, you know what the thing is? It looks colder in West Virginia than Minnesota, but Minnesota's 10 below. West Virginia probably are 30, 40 degrees. But Kellyanne's an all-weather spokesperson and assist deputy assistant to the president.
Yeah,
trying to fix her microphone right now.
You asked her about whether or not the president was concerned with Chris Wray, the FBI director, resigning. I just got a text from somebody I know down in Washington, a highly connected person, said the White House not nervous about it, that he would resign. It would be a celebration because they feel he's not up to the job.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, she said the president hasn't even, that's not even been a concern of his.
Yeah.
At least he hasn't expressed it to her.
Let's rebuild what happened. Remember, the memo comes out. It gets brought to the White House, and they don't want to take a look at it. At the time, Chris Wray looks at it and fires Andy McCabe the next day.
Right.
So people assume this has got to be related.
But it's not. I mean, there were stories that came out. Andy McCabe was removed from his job due to what's going on with the Inspector General, Mr. Horowitz's report, which is coming out in a month or so.
It's all still connected.
Yeah.
It's all one big investigation.
We understand we've got Kellyanne back. Kellyanne, thank you very much. Sorry about the audio problem. Since you're out in West Virginia, we should ask you a little bit about the Republicans' winter retreat out there at the Greenbrier. The president got a hero's welcome yesterday from a lot of Republicans who about a year or 2 years ago were not squarely in his camp.
He did indeed. I came here with the president, then I overnighted because I'll address him at breakfast today, and I can confirm for you that the members and their families here are very excited to have the president come and address them, the vice president the night before that. And why? Because he's coming here with a message of progress and of solutions and a vision for this year. Obviously, the vice president addressed the midterms. I'll leave that to other people. But this president is talking about accomplishments that he's been able to have on behalf of the American people with the Republican House and Senate. Most specifically, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And as the president stood on that stage yesterday, we got to basically the 300th company announcing that they would give bonuses or pay raises or other capital investments. That includes, early this week, a coal company right here in West Virginia handing out bonuses to its employees. The president also took on Nancy Pelosi's comment that these are just, quote, crumbs, comparing it to the deplorables comment by that person he beat in the election whose name I don't say on TV anymore. But it does tell you how elitist and out of touch the Democrats are. They voted to shut down the government, voted against tax cuts that's benefiting millions of people to the tune of billions of dollars. And just this week, literally sat on their hands when the national anthem was being mentioned, when MS-13 gangs were being mentioned, and those parents, God bless their courage. And we all share their grief and their unspeakable grief at losing their daughters at the hands of these gangs. They sat there when the president was talking about the bonuses and wages and the tax cuts. So you see the two symbols right now. You see the North Korean holding up his crutches, and you see the Democrats literally sitting on their hands. We hope that we'll have bipartisanship as a means towards the shared ends of immigration and infrastructure and national security and other issues this year. But this is a president who came here, and you're right, there are many people here who do not support him for president, but they support him as president, and they share an agenda that's really making America more prosperous and more secure and more accountable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Kellyanne, what he's doing for unemployment and job creation. And I know he said yesterday that Paul Ryan picked up the phone and called him and said that he's never seen the Republican Party this united. We've come a long way, baby, because at the beginning of the year, that was not the case. Thank you so much for weathering the cold weather for us.
Kellyanne, not only is it cold.
It's 8 degrees here. It's 8 degrees here.
Eight.
But thanks. Yes.
Wow.
God bless. Go Eagles. Oh my God, you said my name in front of Herschel Walker. It was on my bucket list.
Do you have a prediction, Kellyanne, on the final score?
Heisman Trophy winner, 1982.
And a great guy.
Great man. Yes, Eagles all the way. It'll be fun there.
All right.
Where are you going to be watching it?
Brian, we'll miss you.
Super Bowl.
Hey, Brian.
Oh, you'll be there.
I'll be there at the Super Bowl.
Good for you.
I'll be there. Hey, Brian, I hear Brian Kilmeade only goes to the Super Bowl when it's like 70 degrees plus.
Yes, that's true.
Correct.
I demand flip-flop. It's a flip-flop Super Bowl.
By the fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Kellyanne, is the president going to sit down for an interview with NBC? Halftime.
At the moment, no. He said no to that.
Okay.
I think he addressed the American people directly this week through his State of the Union speech, and he talks to them, cuts out the middleman plenty of times, but he's not. He said all he needs to say earlier this week, and it was a great speech to the country.
That's going to be
By the way, I wanted to say one thing about that speech. I want to say one thing quickly about that speech. Nobody said. Everybody is commenting how great the guests were, how incredibly moving and heroic and tragic and patriotic the guest stories were. In addition, none of them ever leaked. And I did want to make that point because there's a very small group involved in that, but none of them ever leaked. I think that's a great sign of a very tight White House that's working for the American people and for the president's agenda and not their own egos.
I'll add something else. If you're a non-politician, you keep your secrets. That's the way the normal people do it. They were asked to the White House. Why would they tell anyone?
Normal people do it every day.
No kidding. All right, Kellyanne.
You got it. Take care. Thank
Good luck at the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, putting the handcuffs on the New York Police Department, officers ordered to limit their cooperation with ICE. So just how dangerous is that? A former New York City Police Department commander says very dangerous, and he's going to join us live.
Plus, Pete Hegseth is live in cold Minnesota, talking a little pigskin with the fans ahead of the Super Bowl.